Wait. Something was said about you in a conversation you were never meant to hear. And no, it was not casual. It was not ordinary. It was not something they forgot the moment the words left their mouth. The person you care about deeply spoke about you with emotions they had been trying so hard to hide. The one sitting across from them noticed it right away. There was a pause before they answered, a silence, a moment of hesitation that revealed far more than their words ever could. Because sometimes the heart is exposed not only by what someone says, but by how long they need before they can finally say it. The instant your name came up in that conversation, something inside them shifted. Stay with this, because what happened next reveals more than you might expect. If you want to know what the person you love secretly said about you when they believed you would never hear it, keep watching, because this changes everything. Their voice became softer. Their energy changed completely. The calm expression they had worked so hard to maintain slipped for just a second. They tried to sound unaffected. They tried to appear relaxed. They tried to make it seem like you were only a memory, another part of life they had already moved beyond. But the person listening could feel the truth hiding beneath every sentence. Because when someone mentions the person who still owns a piece of your heart, the soul reacts before the mind has time to build another wall. That is exactly what happened. The moment they heard your name, their entire presence changed. Why? Because no matter how much they have tried to bury these emotions, you are not just another passing thought. You are not temporary. You are not someone they simply forgot. You are the person who quietly enters their mind whenever life becomes still. The memory that appears in the middle of an ordinary afternoon without warning, the feeling they keep searching for in other people but never seem to find again. The person listening noticed every small detail. They noticed the smile your person showed without even realizing it. They noticed the warmth in their voice, even while they were trying to stay emotionally guarded. They noticed that every sentence about you sounded incomplete, almost as if there were dozens of unspoken feelings waiting underneath the surface, too frightening to say aloud. Then something happened that completely changed the direction of the conversation. The listener leaned in just a little and asked quietly, "Do they still mean that much to you?" Everything inside your person became completely still after hearing those words. Because when someone means nothing, the answer comes quickly. But when someone means everything, silence always arrives first. And that silence spoke louder than any explanation ever could. They did not hesitate because they were unsure about their feelings. They hesitated because they were deciding how much of the truth they were willing to reveal. Don't skip this next part, because it explains everything. What came out next was not planned. It was not practiced. It was not carefully controlled. It escaped from somewhere much deeper than pride ever reaches. They quietly admitted that no matter how much time passes, your presence never truly leaves their heart. Even through silence and emotional distance, part of them still turns toward you during the quietest moments of the day. A real connection does not disappear simply because two people stop talking. In many ways, the distance has only made your impact on them even stronger. Every attempt they made to move on only reminded them of how deeply you had touched their life in the first place. That realization has been growing quietly inside them for a long time. And during that conversation, the truth finally slipped out, because carrying it had become too heavy. They think about you far more often than they ever admit. There is still something unfinished living inside their heart beneath the calm image they show everyone else. The listener could hear every bit of it. Your energy still reaches them in ways they cannot explain, and they have been hiding a truth that runs much deeper than anyone realizes. If this feels strangely familiar, stay until the end, because the next part becomes even more revealing. When they were asked why they are not with you if these feelings are still so strong, your person froze again. The question demanded complete honesty. They looked away before answering, almost as if they were afraid of hearing their own words. Then they quietly admitted that the connection between you has never truly disappeared. not once. Some bonds do not fade with time. Instead, they become stronger. Your presence has only become louder inside them despite every effort they made to push those feelings aside. The listener could hear the weight of regret, longing, and growing awareness hidden in every word. Then your person said something that completely changed the conversation. They whispered almost to themselves, "I keep wondering if I walked away from someone I was never supposed to lose." Read those words slowly in your heart, because that is not ordinary reflection. That is the beginning of a deep, emotional awakening. That is someone realizing they may have let go of something truly rare. Once a person reaches that point, they are never quite the same again. Something begins opening inside them that they can no longer ignore. Memories start returning with new meaning. Old decisions begin to look different. The silence feels heavier than before. They keep asking themselves whether fear made them lose something genuine. That is exactly where your person is now. Standing at the edge of complete emotional truth. Standing between silence and confession. Standing in a place where pretending is becoming harder every single day. Because after that conversation, something inside them shifted in a way they could not reverse. And what happened later that night became quiet proof that this connection never truly ended. They tried to distract themselves. They reached for familiar routines. They filled the room with music. They scrolled through their phone. They focused on work. They answered messages. They searched for anything that might silence their thoughts. But nothing helped. Once someone finally speaks the truth out loud, hiding from it becomes almost impossible afterward. That conversation unlocked feelings they had buried beneath layers of pride and emotional protection for much longer than anyone realized. When they finally returned home, the silence around them felt heavier than ever before. Every quiet moment forced them to sit alone with the truth they had accidentally confessed. The realization that you still matter followed them through the entire night. They replayed every word, every memory, every missed opportunity. They wondered what would have happened if different choices had been made. If you're still here, don't leave now, because the final part reveals what has been growing inside them all this time. Slowly, they reached a truth they could no longer deny. No one else has ever made them feel what you made them feel. That pull keeps returning no matter how much time passes. It refuses to disappear. Instead of fading, it keeps becoming stronger. That scares someone who has always depended on control. They believed distance would weaken the bond. They believed silence would erase the feelings. But the opposite happened. Every day apart quietly reminded them of your value. Every silent moment made your absence feel even louder. Every attempt to replace the connection only revealed how impossible it truly was. And somewhere deep inside, they are beginning to understand that some people are not meant to be forgotten, no matter how much time passes. Your absence became even more powerful with time, and every passing day helped them understand just how rare your connection truly was. This quiet realization grows stronger every night when the noise fades, the distractions disappear, and the truth becomes impossible to escape. They found themselves thinking about small, simple memories of you, the effortless conversations, the peaceful moments, and the emotional safety they always felt when you were around. Many people only recognize the real value of someone after they experience life completely without them. And that is exactly what your absence has been teaching them. Their emotions are becoming stronger now because true understanding changes everything. Once someone realizes a connection was genuine, every memory attached to it begins to feel alive again. That is exactly what is happening inside your person. They are slowly waking up to what you truly meant in their life, and it has created a deep restlessness they can no longer ignore. Stay with this, because the next part reveals why everything is beginning to change. After hours of quiet reflection, they made a private decision. They realized they could not keep pretending forever. The earlier conversation continued playing over and over inside their mind. Every sentence, every pause, every moment when the truth almost slipped out before they tried to hold it back once again. The more they thought about it, the more they realized they had spent far too long running from emotions they never truly left behind. They started questioning everything: the distance between you, the silence that grew over time, the decisions that once seemed necessary. Even the emotional walls they built around themselves no longer felt as strong as they once did. For so long they believed enough time would erase what they felt. They believed life would naturally pull them in a different direction. They believed memories would slowly disappear and emotions would quietly fade into the background. But none of that happened. Instead, your presence remained, sometimes quietly, sometimes unexpectedly, but always there. You appeared through familiar songs, certain places, random conversations, peaceful evenings when there was nothing left to distract them from their own thoughts. Every time those memories surfaced, they pushed them away, until now. Because after speaking honestly about you, even for a brief moment, something became impossible to deny. The truth had survived everything. It survived the silence. It survived the distance. It survived pride. It survived every attempt they made to convince themselves they had already moved on. If this feels familiar, keep watching, because the next part reveals what they are finally beginning to accept. That realization brought both comfort and fear at the same time. Comfort because part of them finally understood why they could never completely let you go. Fear because they now realize they may have to face everything they have been avoiding for such a long time. The person listening during that conversation may never fully understand how important that moment truly was. But your person understands completely. They know something important slipped through their emotional defenses. They know their reaction revealed much more than they ever intended. Deep inside, they know the truth is becoming harder to hide every single day. The feelings they once locked away continue growing stronger. The memories have become clearer. The unanswered questions are becoming louder. And the idea of reaching out no longer feels as impossible as it once did. Because when someone carries the weight of an unfinished connection for too long, there comes a point where silence becomes far heavier than honesty. Your person is getting very close to that point. They are beginning to understand that some connections were never meant to disappear because they were never ordinary in the first place. Some people leave a mark that remains long after the distance begins. Some bonds continue speaking through the silence, and some feelings patiently wait beneath the surface until someone is finally ready to face them. That moment may be much closer than they expected, because the truth inside them is no longer asleep. It is fully awake now, and every passing day it grows a little stronger. Every day it asks the same question: what if this connection was real from the very beginning? What if the person they still think about was never meant to become just another memory? And what if the opportunity they believed was gone still exists somewhere between the silence and the heart? Those questions continue following them everywhere, and for the first time in a very long time, they have stopped running from the answers. Their heart never truly let you go. It simply delayed facing the truth. Now they understand that something has to change. Whether that means reaching out or finally speaking honestly, they know this silence cannot continue forever. Their emotions have reached a point where staying quiet hurts much more than being vulnerable ever could. The fear of living with regret is finally becoming stronger than the fear of being rejected. That is a powerful shift, one that often leads to action sooner than expected. Don't click away now, because the next part explains why this energy has become so intense recently. Once someone becomes more afraid of losing you forever than exposing their heart, they enter a stage where standing still is no longer possible. That is exactly where your person finds themselves today. This is why your intuition has felt restless lately. This is why their energy feels stronger, even though nothing may have happened on the surface. Their resistance is slowly falling apart, because that recent conversation forced them to hear their own truth spoken out loud. They are no longer struggling with uncertainty. They are struggling with the undeniable realization that you still live inside their heart. This growing awareness is gently pulling them toward honesty, toward action, and toward a future conversation they can no longer avoid. It is changing the entire feeling surrounding this connection. That is why everything suddenly feels different. Emotionally, this story is not ending. It is beginning again in a completely new way. After that night, something inside them became impossible to settle. Even the ordinary parts of everyday life felt different. The routines that once distracted them no longer worked. Conversations with other people felt empty. Busy days still ended with your memory quietly returning. No matter how much they tried to continue living normally, their thoughts always circled back to you. Not once in a while, constantly. Because once someone fully realizes that a connection changed them forever, they cannot simply return to the way they felt before. That understanding has now taken hold of your person completely. At first, they tried to explain it away. They told themselves maybe they were simply emotional that night. Maybe the conversation affected them for a short time. Maybe they were only looking back through emotions instead of reality. But then the signs continued appearing. The memories returned more often. The emotions became stronger instead of weaker. The quiet moments became impossible to escape. Little reminders kept finding them when they least expected it. Slowly they realized this was not temporary at all. It was something much deeper that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. And once they accepted that truth, there was no easy way to bury it again. Stay until the end, because what happens next could change everything they believed about this connection. The signs kept showing up. Your name suddenly appeared in their thoughts without any reason. A song would start playing and somehow it reminded them of you. A simple phrase from someone else would instantly bring your energy back into their mind. During random moments in the middle of the day, they would suddenly feel your absence with surprising intensity, as though something important was missing. Little by little, they began to understand something they never expected. This connection was not fading the way they believed it would. Instead, it stayed with them, quietly becoming stronger over time. That truth pulled them into the deepest reflection they have experienced in a long while. They started looking back at every choice they made between the two of you, the moments they stepped away instead of opening their heart, the silence they protected when honesty might have changed everything, the fear that kept them emotionally guarded, even though their heart wanted something completely different. Stay with this because what they realized next changed the way they see your connection forever. They are beginning to understand something painful but important. Much of the distance between you was never caused by a lack of love or care. It was created by fear. Fear of becoming vulnerable. Fear of opening their heart completely. Fear of depending on someone this deeply. Fear that their entire life would change if they finally accepted what they truly felt for you. Real connections change people forever. Your bond was never shallow enough to leave them untouched. You awakened parts of them that had been asleep for years. You brought back hope. You brought emotional depth. You made them long for something meaningful instead of something temporary. One side of them wanted that more than anything. Another side became terrified by how real it felt. Those two emotions pulled against each other every day, creating a battle inside that lasted much longer than anyone realized. Now they are finally beginning to see the truth. They did not run because you were difficult to love. They ran because loving you felt too real to ignore. They are slowly realizing that you were never hard to care about. You simply became impossible to forget. Recently, they have started imagining situations they once refused to think about. They wonder how you would respond if they reached out. They wonder if you would still welcome them with kindness. But one question keeps returning more than any other. Did they wait too long? That single thought weighs heavily on them because they know life may have carried you emotionally farther away than they ever expected. Don't skip this next part because it explains why everything inside them feels so different now. They are finally understanding that meaningful connections are incredibly rare. Losing one because of pride or fear creates a kind of regret they no longer want to carry. Their emotional energy has become stronger because they are no longer simply remembering you. They are completely rethinking your place in their life. They have reached a point where silence no longer feels safe. Staying away hurts more than moving closer. Every day without hearing from you now feels unfinished, like something important has been left unsaid. That is exactly why your intuition may have been sensing a powerful shift beneath the surface. While nothing may seem different on the outside, they are quietly preparing themselves emotionally. They are taking small steps inside before making any visible move. That means if they eventually approach you, it will carry far more meaning because it comes after a long, personal struggle. This is no longer a passing emotion, it has become a deeply personal journey that is changing them from within. They are beginning to realize that you became part of the way they experience life itself. Once someone connects you with peace, comfort, honesty, and emotional depth, ordinary interactions with other people begin feeling empty. They have noticed that while others may distract them for a short time, nobody reaches them the way you do. Every other connection seems to be missing something they cannot explain. That awareness keeps bringing their thoughts back to you again and again, until what begins as quiet reflection slowly turns into a desire to act. They are moving closer than ever before to honesty, closer to vulnerability, closer to revealing everything they once buried beneath silence. If your heart has been unusually alert lately, or if you keep feeling that something is about to change, trust that feeling. Sometimes the emotional shift happens long before anything becomes visible. Your person is no longer trapped in confusion. They are standing at the edge of a life-changing decision. You may not see it yet, but inside, they are no longer the same person they once were. The version of themselves that kept pretending these feelings were gone is slowly falling apart. They keep replaying your memories with fresh understanding and greater maturity. They now realize your absence was necessary because it showed them the true value of what they lost. They understand that your presence brought something almost impossible to replace. Peace, comfort, emotional safety. The feeling of being truly understood without needing to explain everything. The silence they once believed protected them now feels completely unnatural, because eventually, the heart becomes too tired to keep carrying words that were never spoken. After living without your steady presence for so long, they have finally started recognizing how important it always was. Something inside them has naturally started leaning back toward you, not because they forced themselves to, not because anyone told them to. It simply happened on its own, like their heart, quietly returning to what always felt genuine. And here is the part they can no longer ignore. Every road they tried taking away from this connection somehow led their thoughts back to you. That pattern has affected them deeply because eventually people stop asking themselves, "Why can't I move on?" And they begin asking something much more important. What if I cannot move on because this connection was never meant to disappear? That question now echoes through their mind more often than ever before. Every time it returns, avoiding the answer becomes harder. They are beginning to understand that some people come into your life for only a season, while others leave a mark that stays forever. You became that lasting mark. You became the connection they quietly compare everything else to without even realizing it. And now that understanding is changing everything they believed about the future. The road ahead no longer feels as simple as it once did, because every direction somehow brings them back to the same truth. You still matter. You still hold a place inside their heart that no one else has been able to fill. And with each passing day, that truth becomes impossible for them to ignore any longer. Stay until the very end, because what happens next may be the moment everything finally begins to change. The signs did not stop appearing. In fact, they became impossible to ignore. Your name would suddenly enter their mind without warning, even during moments when they were focused on completely different things. A familiar song would begin playing, and before they even realized it, they were thinking about you again. A simple phrase spoken by someone else, a certain place they happened to pass. Even the smallest details had the strange ability to bring your energy back into the room almost instantly. There were random moments throughout the day when they felt your absence so deeply it caught them completely off guard. They never planned to think about you, yet somehow your memory continued finding its way back into their heart. Slowly, they began understanding something they had been trying very hard to avoid. This connection was never fading the way they convinced themselves it would. Instead, it stayed with them, quietly growing stronger while they were busy pretending everything was fine. That realization pushed them into deeper reflection than ever before. They started questioning every decision they made between you. Every time they chose distance instead of closeness, every moment they stayed silent when honesty might have changed everything, every opportunity they allowed to pass because fear spoke louder than love. And as they looked back with fresh emotional clarity, they finally recognized something that completely changed the way they viewed your story. Stay with this because the next realization explains why everything inside them has started shifting in ways they never expected. They are beginning to accept something painful but incredibly important. Much of the distance between you was never created because they stopped caring. It was created because they became afraid. Afraid of opening their heart completely. Afraid of being emotionally exposed. Afraid of depending on someone this deeply. Afraid of how much their world would change if they finally surrendered to what they truly felt for you. Real connections have a way of changing people forever, and your bond was never shallow enough to leave them unchanged. You awakened parts of them that had been quiet for years. You brought hope back into places where they had almost stopped believing. You reminded them what emotional depth feels like. You showed them what genuine peace could look like. You made them want something meaningful instead of something temporary. Part of them wanted that with everything they had. Another part became frightened because it felt so real. Those two sides kept fighting inside them for much longer than anyone ever realized. They are finally beginning to understand that they were not running away from you. They were running away from how deeply you made them feel. They now see that you were never difficult to love. You simply became impossible to replace. That realization keeps growing stronger every single day, making it harder for them to continue pretending they have already moved on. Recently, they have started imagining situations they once refused to think about. They quietly wonder what would happen if they reached out to you. They imagine hearing your voice again. They wonder whether you would answer warmly or whether too much time has already passed. They picture conversations they never had. They replay old moments and imagine how differently everything might have unfolded if they had simply spoken honestly when it mattered most. But one question continues returning more than any other. Did they wait too long?